Hello and good day, everybody. Welcome to CX Excellence Chats with Anjali, the podcast that's all about transforming your business through the power of customer experience. I'm your host, a customer strategy consultant with a passion for transforming business outcomes using a customer first approach. Today, we're going to talk about Indian retail and CX. A recent BCG report predicted that Indian retail is expected to grow at 9 to 10% to reach $2 trillion in a decade. The Indian consumption expansion story spans across tiers, more so in tier 2 and 3, with clear shifts towards organized retail and brands. But running a retail business is fairly unforgiving. First, your brand needs to compete against hundreds of others in a very crowded marketplace. Meanwhile, customers are rolling in options and will switch a brand for its competitor the moment they have a negative experience. That is why creating a great customer experience will help your brand not just thrive, but even survive. Companies are investing seriously into CX because it is very quickly becoming a table stake. A survey by Gartner found CX drives 66% of customer loyalty, making it even more influential than price and brand combined for deciding where the customers will choose to shop. So, whether you operate in a physical environment or in an online store, developing a winning CX strategy is one of the key ways to make sure your business grows. So, our guest today is Arpit Aggarwal. He is Director Growth Strategy and Data at ANAROCK. Until very recently, he was Head of CX Strategy and CRM at Tata Click. He has had previous stints with JLL, Reliance, Benetton, and also worked his way from core data analytics and consumer insight mining businesses. So his has been a career dedicated to understanding consumers and then eventually using that to drive retail brands, both online and offline. So it's going to be an interesting conversation, understanding what he's learned through all of this time. So he will delve into some of the best practices by these retail brands to manage their consumers, keeping in view their specific needs and demands and expectations, and how do brands fulfill all of those personalization needs. So welcome, Arpit.
Hi, Anjali. Thank you for having
Hi.
me.
I hope I did justice to your introduction. Please do say a few words about yourself.
Sure, Anjali. No, I think the introduction was bang on. As you mentioned, I have worked with both online and offline businesses during my career. So, yeah, that's been the highlight. And I can just proudly say that so far it's been a very successful journey.
Wonderful. So let's start with something very basic. You worked, as you said, with both offline and online brands. So how similar or dissimilar is the approach to CX and their practices in both of these environments?
I think whether a business is online or offline, the parameter of customer delight remains same. At the end of the day, business is not only about a great product or a great business model. It is also about how customers perceive your business from a value proposition standpoint, which is over and above the product that you offer or sell. Um, Customer delight has been a bedrock of retail. I think retail businesses tend to operate mostly on trust and customer delight. If a customer is very happy with the overall package that you offer, which is both product plus service, customer is bound to come back unless the experience goes haywire. In fact, there was a report which mentioned that about 72% of the customers feel that if they have a negative experience with a brand, they might not shop again with the brand. So, uh, customer delight for both types of businesses, be it offline or online, remains the bedrock of or as a growth engine for all sorts of brands.
No, I agree totally. But the dimensions of how it is delivered change completely because one is a more digitally delivered process and journey, and the other one has a lot of human element in it. So we will explore that more as we go. But tell me, when planning for growth, in retail, and actually that's what everybody is wanting piece of the pie from this huge growth expansion that's happening. How do retail businesses actually look at acquisition versus retention as growth drivers? And you can say that differently if you want for D2C brands, because probably their dependence on retention would probably be higher, because in a offline environment you're largely dependent on walk-in traffic.
Yes. I think what we really need to understand is where the business is in their life cycle at that point of time is a factor which drives whether a business is looking at acquisition or retention strategy. I think the underlying factor remains the same, that wherever you are in the business life cycle, once you have acquired a customer, you would want to retain them. Simple reason being that today cost of acquiring is about four times the cost of retaining. And retention means that you have a stable cash flow because you know that the customers are coming back or buying, driving repeat purchases at a certain frequency. So you can have better projections from that standpoint. I think overall, from a business standpoint, the it makes more sense to have retention as a growth engine for any brand, and then depending upon where your how your business plans are, you can look at customer acquisition as well, which today most of the brands are doing. They are heavily investing into marketing, depending upon where they are in their life cycle and acquiring customers. But the fundamental, truth remains the same, that unless you're able to retain the customers, you can burn cash and acquire customers, but it will not be a sustainable business model.
Agreed, agreed. But isn't that different for an online offline store,
Uh,
where retention becomes slightly tougher, right?
No, actually, that's a perception.
Mm.
I would like to tell you that even the stores, they. I mean, online has been a phenomena. I think for last 10 to 15 years from an India standpoint. Before that, the brick and mortar channels were, the beacon for CRM and loyalty, right? What used to happen is, if you look back your journey as well, if you think about 20 years ago when we used to, hit only brick and mortar was our channel to go to. When you used to go to a store, why would you go to a store? Because you would know the store manager, you would know the sales staff, you would know what kind of products are there, how's the store layout, where I can find what. Even if you are, let's say, crossing a particular store, a lot of times you would just pop into the store, check the assortment, step out and go back, and then maybe at your convenient time come back and shop again. So that was the level of convenience that was there from a loyalty standpoint that customers had with brick and mortar channel. And even today, it remains all the more relevant. In fact, today it is even more relevant because customers have the option of just going back home and going to an e-commerce platform or a marketplace and shop that product. So if you do not have that loyalty driving a customer to the store, it becomes very, very difficult for for the store to sustain. So I think loyalty has always been there from an offline channel standpoint. Now we are realizing the importance of it a lot more because the footfalls have kind of mellowed down, and there is a significant share of wallet that is going to e-commerce. But the importance of loyalty has not waned down in any way.
I totally agree with you. But I think what earlier used to be a lot called brand loyalty is now becoming a series of data led retention practices. And I think that's the pivot that we've seen. So let's, with that, get into data, and analytics is really the core driver of CX, right? Because it gives you insights into customers' preferences, pain points, behaviors, expectations, and so on. So, talk to us a little about how you've seen all of this in use. You've had an analytic background and gone into retail, so I'm sure you amalgamated these two things very well. Yeah.
See, analytics is the key. The While retail as a business has a lot to do with spending time in the market, observing customer behavior, understanding their requirements, etc. If you look at it from an objective standpoint, that is also data. Okay, what is just happening is a lot of it is being stored in our minds and not maybe on the system, but even we are interpreting data in a real life scenario all the time. I mean, whatever observations. So What data analytics does is that it brings all those facts on the table which help you make the right kind of decisions. So when for example, as a part of my journey with Tata Click, and it's one of the most recent examples that I can recall, there was a cohort of customers where we observed that that cohort of customers was only engaging with one category. Okay. When you look at a traditional retail business, you sort of divide customers in a two by two matrix, saying high volume, high value, and then you just tell, okay, this is my segment, which is high value, high volume, and they are the most preferential set of customers. But that doesn't mean that they are the only customers that you need to focus on. There was one set of customers where I realized that was a very high value cohort, but not high on volume. What was going differently for them is they were only engaging on with high ASP products. Now you can't ignore them just because they are not coming back. Let's say my average repeat purchase is once in a month. These set of customers might be coming in once in 2 months, but they are equally important because in some of the cases they are spending a lot more than an average customer just because they are engaging with high ASP products. Now, if analytics is not there, you would not probably put in as much of an effort for these set of customers versus the customers who are coming more frequently but not buying as much. So, analytics brings all these insights on the table, and then what you can do is you can customize your offerings as per customer behavior or as per the cohort's behavior, and then target them with right strategies, giving them more personalized experience and a more relevant experience as well. So analytics has been at the forefront from a customer experience standpoint, be it from a pre-purchase journey or a post-purchase journey as well. I mean, a classic example would be if a customer, I know that a customer, let's say, and it's a repeat behavior, that a customer, of let's say order something on the e-commerce platform. Now I know that there is a cohort of customers which tends to every after placing an order within 2 days they tend to call my contact center and ask about the order status. So I know what kind of customer queries are being driven from that cohort. And if
Sure.
they represent, let's say, if they represent about 40-45% of my customer base, or even if I look at the Pareto's law and 30% customers giving me 70% of the revenue, if they represent a sizable chunk of that 30% as well, I might as well configure a communication on the second day to give these customers that comfort of knowing where the order is in the
Right.
journey and should save their time in terms of calling the customer care and asking for an update.
Absolutely. I think fabulous examples there. But just double clicking into it, what you've talked about is use of segmentation or clustering or personas that you create, right? They could be based upon transactional behavior, but they could also be based upon demographics, right? So, how much do you tend to use transactional versus demographics in terms of creating these personas and using them to enhance customer value?
Um, I think I can't differentiate between the two.
Okay,
Today,
it's a
there is a
mix.
strong overlapping behavior between transactional, characteristics and demographic characteristics. Because what happens is, what I have seen is that today, a customer from a tier two, tier three city who is as affluent as they are, in terms of tier one, their behaviors are quite similar. I mean, gone are those days when I could say that based on demographics, I could differentiate customer behavior. Specifically, customers who are engaged to online as a channel, or engaged with online as a channel, you can't just simply say that okay, this is a tier three customer, so they're bound to behave in a different
Yeah.
in a particular manner. That is not happening anymore. I think the boundaries are more and more blurred, and we are seeing that customers from tier two, tier three are as demanding as a tier one customer. In fact, tier one customers, probably because they have so much going on, they are sometimes less demanding as compared to a tier three or tier two customer.
Yeah, also because they've just adopted the medium, I think their engagement levels are very steep in tier two, tier three. But you would still see a change in terms of, say, generational shifts. For instance, the buying patterns of the older generations, the baby boomers versus, say, the Gen Y or Gen Z. I'm sure those would be different.
Yeah. So I think what I can definitely notice, or what I've noticed in last couple of years is that I think the baby boomers or the Gen A or Gen Z, they are the ones who are essentially they have less patience.
Hmm.
What they essentially want is they want everything at the click of a button. I think that has led to the culture of quick commerce, which is currently
Yes.
the talk of the town.
Hmm.
They're slightly less patient. They want everything quickly as possible. They are ready to pay the premium for it. For example, today, most of the e-commerce places have come up with this feature called express delivery, which is essentially you pay a certain premium and you're able to get the products faster as compared to the standard turnaround time or order to delivery period. So people are willing to go for it, but most of this adoption is coming from Gen Z's or Gen A's. I think it is also because of the fact that the affluence level has gone up. So people, because they have disposable income, they are just going for it and opting for this premiumization and gratification, which is as per their convenience and not as per general processes.
Because they are digital natives born in this era, I think
Yeah.
they expect you to be smarter, more seamless in your journeys, and are not willing to excuse you if you make mistakes, whereas the older guys will still say koi baat nahi yaar, galti ho gayi. Let's
Same.
carry on. So yeah, I think that's something that we've come to understand. So when we talk about personalization, I believe it's both a science and an art. Whilst data will tell you, or AI will tell you about the customer and their preferences, and therefore what you should do with them. But actually creating the communication, embedding empathy, actually reaching out, and having a human sort of an interface is a bit of an art. What do you say to that?
Um, I completely agree to it. Now, the question here is where to adopt what. Okay, when I look at mass price points, okay, I think technology is doing the job, because what essentially customers want is they have placed the orders, they want the deliveries to happen, they want as less friction as possible, and just get it done. I mean, that's the attitude when it comes to mass price points. The moment you look at luxury, I think it changes drastically. When we see a luxury product being ordered, first of all, the customer doesn't want to engage with bots. Okay, somebody, I mean, a human to talk to them. That is one.
Yeah.
Second thing is they want personalization from a communication standpoint. They want somebody to tell them, okay, on fourth day after placing the order is about to get delivered either today or tomorrow or something like that. If you just send them a notification, most of the time they will not even read it. So what we have essentially seen is that the behavior in terms of the price points changes very, very drastically. The moment it comes to luxury, the expectation is that they want more of a human interface. They want personalization from a communication standpoint. But in mass, it's okay to also let technology drive a lot of it and get things going at least. So I think that ways technology, depending upon where you are in the product pricing and the premiumization journey, will sort of you'll have to balance it out between AI, Gen AI, and the human element. But what cannot go away in both the scenarios is empathy. I think empathy again is a bedrock of customer experience and service. No matter whether it is a technology-led journey or whether it is a human-led journey, if the empathy element is missing, customers are simply not going to forgive you. I mean, and especially today in the age of social media, when everybody is empowered to express their opinion about the brands and the associated services, no matter whether it is a mass pricing, I mean, for a product that is priced at, let's say, 500, 600 rupees versus a product that is priced at 5,000, 6,000 rupees, customer is going to, just express their opinion in whatever channel they feel like. So empathy cannot go away irrespective of whether it is technology or human-led journey. Yeah, depending upon the business scenario, you can play, either with more from a technology standpoint or an automation standpoint, or you can drive the human-led conversations.
I so agree with that. I think I think just people want to be recognized as humans, as an individual, and not be just be automated. I think it's a bit cyclical. Whilst all of us wanted to go digital, but I think everyone's realized that bots alone ain't doing it for us. Yeah. With that, let's move into something slightly different and talk about service strategy. So, how do you plan inventory and ensure no outages and the ability to fulfill customer orders? I think that's also a huge dependence on CRM and the data piece, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think inventory is one of the biggest pain points in, especially in the multi-channel scenario or omni-channel scenario. A classic example would be, let's say suppose a brand is fulfilling orders from their stores. Now, there was one inventory that is showing in the system. Brand has, I mean, the store has sold that inventory, and the system has not gotten updated. Now, what happens is at the same time, within a certain period before that refresh happens, customer goes to a marketplace, sees that product available, one inventory again, places the order, and the order is not getting fulfilled. Now, what do you do in that case? Because customer says that it's not my fault. I have done everything that you wanted me to. I placed the order, paid it. I mean, it is a prepaid order. I expect the product to come to me, but inventory is not with you. So how do you manage that? I think there are a lot of checks that have been put in place, especially in the last couple of years since with the advent of omni-channel, wherein what we tend to do is we tend to forecast from a sales standpoint in terms of what will be my out of stock scenario, basis the rate of sale, and according to that we request the brands to update the inventory, from an availability standpoint. If let's say an inventory gets blocked, for example, another problem that we a lot of us feel or face is, I'll take an example of Book My Show in this case because I think that is something that everybody will relate with. If you go to a movie and you select a cinema hall and you click on seats, and then you proceed to the next step of payment, but somehow for some reason you do not go ahead with it. If you go back to the tickets page, those seats are blocked. Okay, that's a inventory refresh cycle. So essentially, because you cancel the payment, the seats ideally in your mind as a customer they should be available because you will not proceed with the payment. But in the back end, it has been blocked for a certain duration because the system expects you to complete the process. So now for the system to realize that this process has not been completed and they want to release the inventory, it has a certain lag period depending upon which organization, how advanced your configuration is, etc., etc. The duration varies. So in that case, you can't lose the business. So how do you do that? So there are certain checks and balances that have been put in place to make sure that we are bringing back the inventory, that we are uploading additional inventory in advance or in anticipation for these kind of things to happen. Then at the same time, we are also becoming a lot more strict in warehouses and stores to make sure that the inventory updation is done properly. For example, another example would be, let's say a defective product is at the store. In the system, it's showing one inventory, but you can't send it to the customer because the product is defective. So then what do you do in that case? So those are being marked in the inventory properly. A lot of checks and balances that have been put in place to make sure that the inventory does not become a reason for a customer to rate you low on NPS or have a bad perception about the marketplace of the brand. Yes.
You talked about NPS, so let's go into that. Um, Obviously, CSAT or NPS are fairly important for all brands, and especially for retail brands and D2C brands, to continue to understand customer feedback and obviously try and learn and pivot constantly in terms of whatever we learn from them. But most brands would also run some amount of programs for their, say, detractors to continue to do retention. Because the ones that are promoters will continue to come back to you and help you drive value over time. But what about the detractors? How do you sort of manage them and still bring them back to you?
Um, Okay, I'll give an example of Tata Click. That is one because that was a part of my journey, and at the same time, some of the other brands that I've spoken with. I think the common problem in our industry is because of the sheer volumes and the customer footfalls that we see.
Hmm.
A lot of
Hmm.
times we tend to ignore detractors because I think, okay, I have a substantial chunk of promoters or loyalists that I can work with and achieve my targets. But what we don't realize is that with more and more options becoming available, especially in this digital era, a loyalist may not be a loyalist from a wallet share standpoint. So what
Hmm.
essentially means is the customer might come back to you, but the
Hmm.
wallet share might shrink. Then what happens? So, what we really need to understand is that detractors are equally important as promoters because detractors not only are dissatisfied with you. I mean, they're not the only ones who are dissatisfied. Everybody in that circle will carry a certain perception about your brand. So
Yeah.
you need to address it head on. The best way of addressing detractors is be empathetic, understand their problems, and tell them that we are happy to take corrective measures. We request you to please give us one more chance. What it basically means is if you want to call them and request them to come back on the website or the marketplace or come back to the store, please do that. Don't think that by requesting a customer to come back, you are going to devalue your brand. In fact, you're going to create a potential loyalist, which is going to lead to a higher NPS, more word of mouth publicity, and lesser acquisition costs.
Hmm.
So we at Tata Click, we used to call our detractors, understand what is the problem statement that they are struggling with, and then we used to tell them that okay, we will take the corrective measures. We'll let you know by the time we have investigated the process and come back with an RCA. Post that confirmation, please do come back and shop with us.
Sure.
And
Sure.
when we used to do that, we saw that approximately after the first connect, about 30% customers, 30 to 35% of the customers would come back, shop with us, and then we would see a healthy conversion rate within that from a potential to a loyalist. And
Hmm.
that is where it helped in retaining significant amount of business and reducing the acquisition costs.
Oh, I so agree. I can relate with that with other categories as well. So when it comes to listening, I feel the least engaged customers actually don't even give you feedback. They just walk away. The
Correct.
detractors at some point are connected with your brand and actually genuinely want to tell you, hey, guys, just correct this because they are somewhere still connected with you. And they love it when you come back and listen to them because I think it's also a basic human need. The fact that somebody heard me and reached out to me still means a lot to them. And as you said, they could even be potential loyalists. So, talking of loyalty, let's talk a little bit about lifetime value. It is the ultimate metric, stemming from, of course, loyalty and repeat purchases and higher value purchases and so on. But share an example or two about how you continue to bring customers back to the marketplace.
Okay, I'll share a very interesting example uh, from one of my journeys or one of my teammates' journey predominantly. So, uh, in Tata Click, we used to have a program called assisted sales. What it basically means is that if you have any questions before placing an order, you can connect with an expert, and then you can ask your questions, get your doubts clarified, and then place the order eventually. Okay. Now, in this particular case, we had a very, very, how do I say, affluent customer uh, who wanted to buy an expensive watch. So I think the price point was, 10 lakhs plus roughly, if I remember
Okay.
correctly. But the customer had a very, very unique demand. Customer said that I will only pick up this watch from that brand's service center in India.
Okay.
Now imagine that as a request. We are an e-commerce platform. Our business proposition, the whole business proposition is you place an order, we will deliver it to your doorstep. In
Sure.
that era, a customer is coming back and telling us that, hey, I am going to place the order with you, but I want to pick up this watch from the brand service center. And it's an international brand. So they have very limited service centers in the country. Okay, I think they had three of them. Uh, we were thinking, okay, how do we address this? Because if you work in e-commerce, you will realize that there is the whole concept of billing address, shipping address, and all of that stuff. You have to take care of those things for this order to be worked out in a particular manner.
Sure.
Now, what we essentially did was we went out of the way, we got the order placed in a certain manner where the shipping address was the service center location of that particular store or the brand. We got it delivered there. We sent one of our team members there who waited for the customer to arrive, and then the customer picked up the watch, went back, write a, wrote a huge recommendation for that person, saying that I don't think anybody has delivered that exceptional a service in my shopping journey so far. And I think since then, the customer, year on year, I think doubled the sale values or their sale profile from 1 year to another. I mean, so if X was the amount in year one, it certainly went to 2X in year two. That is the power of loyalty and curating experiences for our customers.
Yeah,
And
it's
and and it
yeah.
was a fix for us as well because we did not know exactly in the initial place, we did not know how are we going to work it out.
Yeah. So these are non-templated demands and you don't have SOPs for them. But this is what we call in our parlance moment marketing, right? It's moments of truth that you've created and then you have somebody for life. Like that's the solid relationship created and it's a memory for life. And I think those are the ones that we really strive for. And those are the ones that create true loyal and CLTV customers, right? So wonderful
Absolutely.
example there.
I think I'll just add to that point. It is, and CLTV, particularly in these cases, get enhanced in a very, very different manner altogether. I'll tell
Mm,
you another such customer where we had curated an experience. Now that customer, what this customer would do is he would call the RM, the relationship manager, and he would say, "Hey, I want this product. Can you guys get it for me?" Now imagine that kind of a demand. You are an e-commerce platform. The product is not listed on your website, and the customer is coming and telling me that I want this. Can you please get it for me? So now
yeah.
we are also doing this backward journey where we are understanding that some of our customers have very unique demands from a product set standpoint. So far, we had not evaluated that product set from a listing standpoint, but maybe we'll have to do it as an exception for this customer because the vendor is saying so it is doable. But we have to do a whole listing on our platform to service this customer from a demand standpoint. And if we are able to do that, which we did in a lot of cases, we
Mm.
also saw a huge jump in this ERTV because the customer is just so happy saying that I trust you guys. If you can get me this product, which I know is not on your website right now, I'm even a bigger loyalist as compared to what I was before.
Yeah, I think that's a brilliant example of somebody being such a huge brand loyal that he wants to buy everything from you, even if it's not listed. So that's brand loyalty at its peak.
Yes.
Fabulous. Let's move to something slightly different and let's talk about acquisition for a change. So when you look at go-to-market strategies and especially in D2C brands, the whole focus on you talked about it, right? Acquisition costs being very high, and what kind of return on ad spends are we generating, and especially now in the cookie-less digital world that we're getting into, how are brands navigating this environment?
See, privacy is a big concern in today's scenario. Okay, we have to be honest about it. If even if I'm sitting on the other side of table as a marketplace, I have to understand that when I am in a consumer's shoe, I don't want my privacy to be invaded, right? So cookieless is definitely going to be the way forward. Now, what we have to do is we have to understand what are the alternative channels if I can't have information from a cookie standpoint. So in that case, organizations who have first party data, I think they have to up their game. They have to start mining more and more data that is already sitting in their data lake or data warehouse, and they have to make a much more inferential use of that data. I think one of the sad parts about retail is it's a very slow change business. I mean, I've always said this. Changing things within retail business takes a lot of time as compared to probably other businesses. Okay.
Really?
And maybe because of the time, because of the fact that we have SOPs for everything, we have to drive efficiency, we have to drive processes. We don't want to tweak them very often. It has impacts, on the business efficiency. So but now is the time, especially when cooking is being implemented. I mean, Google has, while it had delayed it by 3 years, I think they might just go ahead and implement it as soon as possible. So once they do that for their Chrome browser, it becomes suddenly the norm. And then when that happens, you need to be ready with a lot of insights at your end, be using your first party data to be able to give that personalized experience to our customers. Now, it could be via social media, it could be via your app, it could be via any other means of behavioral transactions that you can generate, inferences from. Doing that will give you a lot of, still a lot of base data to work on from a personalization standpoint. But anybody who is not jumping onto that bandwagon right now is going to
Mm,
struggle.
I so totally agree with you. Yeah.
So alternative channels of understanding customer behavior is going to be very, very critical. And with social commerce becoming so and so, starting to play a much more important role in our lifetime. I think alternative channels is going to give you that information, which is going to get impacted initially because of lack of cookies.
Yeah, so actually, we're seeing the largest retailers create their own social network storefronts as well, and conversations are now becoming more cookies. And so, let's talk a little bit about the potential of social commerce and the way it's explosively growing in India right now, and also in terms of how that's reshaping the experience of customers as they, browse, as they sort of shop on their social handles.
I think social commerce is an outcome of the problem of plenty. That's what my understanding of social commerce is. Today we are spoiled for choices. Okay. Now, when that is the case, and what you see is that there are so many choices, but the information associated to those options is limited from a public domain standpoint. You tend to find information from reliable sources. And when you are able to find it, then you can trust it and you sort of go ahead with the purchases as long as it fits your wallet. I think that has essentially made social commerce what it is today. Customers, because they have so many choices and they have very limited information, they want to find more and more sources which are reliable and they can go ahead with. This whole thing started with the trend of not being able to trust customer reviews on websites, right? What we saw was that a lot of the complaints that were coming with respect to product quality or the product itself, those were stemming out of the fact that customers went to a certain website, saw that there were a lot of reviews, they ordered the product based on reviews, and they did not get the product quality or the product that was either in the images or described in the reviews, etc. So that is when customers started questioning the reviews, and that is where social commerce started stemming in, where as long as I have a trustworthy resource that I can rely on basis on their recommendation, or if they themselves are selling the product digitally, as long as that is happening, I will go through the review or I'll go through the information from that source and order the product.
I think it's disrupted both sides, the supply and the demand side, because it's also
Absolutely.
so much easier now to create your own store sitting from home, and all the mom and pop people, or even housewives, or children literally wanting to do a hustle, side hustle, are able to now do that thanks to Misho, the likes of Misho, who actually started it. But now, of course, there are just so many. And I think it's totally changing the way we shop and interact with brands.
Absolutely. See, you may have a circle of influence which could be 500 people versus an influencer which has 10,000 people, or 50,000 people, or about 100,000 people. Irrespective of what is your circle of influence, there is an opportunity. Okay, I can sell it in my area, which has a thousand houses, as long as I am a trustworthy source for those thousand houses or families that I'm associated with, versus an
Mm,
influencer who is associated with about 1 million people, let's say. So, irrespective of the scale, the opportunity exists, and that is what is driving the social commerce phenomenon. That as long as I have a circle of influence where I can share the information and they can trust me and buy basis my recommendation, it is going to go. Another
mm,
thing, what we have to also realize is that social commerce is also leading to a lot of value generation for the brands as well. Because
mm,
what is happening is that if they have a product which is a very, very good product and a influencer, irrespective of the scale again. I mean, for a smaller scale, maybe a set of influencers, and for a larger scale, maybe one or two key influencers. If they pick up their product and they are able to provide good information about the product, which is trustworthy, it is just going to make you viral, certainly.
mm. Yeah, yeah. So I can give you my own example. So I do, obviously, like many others, addictive to online shopping, and I actually have discovered so many new brands which I did not even know existed. And suddenly, I have so much trust and faith in them because I've tried their merchandise, and I realize it's very good and it fits me better than some of the other larger brands, and I don't really need to go out and shop as much. So it's just a new discovery as well.
Absolutely. And that is why you'll also see a lot of brands have made it mandatory for a customer to buy the product from their website before they are allowed to rate them.
Hmm.
That is also one filtration to generate that kind of trust. So if you go to let's say a Chroma website and you want to buy a product, the first message that comes or the flashes is that rate this product. If you click on rating, it will automatically say that because you have not bought it, you are not allowed to rate.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's I think also to stop misuse because a lot of people were just basically doing fake ratings to just drive up their score, and I think that's also an
Exactly.
attempt to curb that. Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
yeah, yeah. Okay, let me get into one question which is could be a slightly controversial one, which is, do you think that customer experience and retail growth are at crossroads? Meaning, I mean, one is obviously a little bit more about longer term thinking, right? Building relationships, going the whole hog, empathy, promoters, long term loyalty, value. This takes time. Whereas, especially if you look at D2C brands, and the newbies, say the startups, where there's so much pressure, where investors are looking at you for, milestones and top lines to be met. And there's always this pressure of this month, this quarter. And
Yeah.
in an effort to drive that, how do you trade off between these two things?
Uh, okay, as I said, I think sometime during the conversation we again discuss this aspect, and I'm going to bring it again. Irrespective of where you are in your business life cycle, once a customer has been acquired, the idea is to retain that customer, or the idea should be to retain that customer. I agree with you when you use the statement that retail growth and CX are at crossroads. They are definitely. What businesses should realize is that a customer who has been acquired should be retained, because if you are letting that customer go, again using the same customer acquisition versus retention scenario, four times the cost to acquire or replace that customer. Four times the
Mm,
spend is what you have to make to replace that customer. So businesses are definitely missing out on a lot of opportunities from a retention standpoint. But I tell you, today you look at any successful business that has been able to grow at a multiple, whatever that multiple is, 1x, 2x, 3x. What they have been able to only grow because they have created a value proposition for the customer to come. So any business which has not been able to do it has not sustained. I mean, we have had so many brands. I mean, I look at the example of Urban Company. I mean, that in itself was a revolution when that service got launched. Initially, they struggled because the repeat was not that great. So when they pivoted from Urban Clap to Urban Company, and they started, structuring things in a much better way as a service, etc., they saw a lot of uptick in the adoption and repeat as well. Customers started realizing that at the click of a button, I have services that in a traditional setup, maybe I'll have to go to 10 shops. For example, if I have to get a
Yeah.
electrician to my house, I
Yeah.
might have to approach five electricians. Five of them might refuse me, saying that I don't have time. Or maybe if I have been a repeat offender from a market standpoint, whereas I don't pay them as per their expectations, they might be like, "नहीं sir, अब नहीं आ सकते." वो time का बहाना मार के they will just simply vanish. Okay.
Sure.
So my point here is that I mean, the vendors are also, they are like, okay, I will only go, perform a service if I am getting compensated for that. So Urban Clap, what they did was they structured the entire thing. They put the services from a standardization standpoint, defined the SOPs, etc., etc., priced them in a manner which was both convenient from a vendor standpoint and the consumer standpoint. And they went ahead and did that. They were only able to do it because they realized customer experience and vendor experience is equally important in both the scenarios. Both are their customers. I mean, honestly speaking, both are their customers, right?
Absolutely.
So only the businesses that have been able to sustain, and irrespective of whatever business it is, you pick
Yeah.
any case study, businesses that have been able to sustain is only able to sustain because they've created a value proposition from a customer experience standpoint.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they've not been able to. So any
Sure.
brands today, even if they are under investor pressure to scale at a particular pace, I think they should just realize that they cannot let go of customer experience, because burning money is easy, but it's short term. Okay.
Yeah.
And we today, the price that we are paying, where the conversation around profitability in last 1 year has taken so much center stage, it has
Yeah.
only happened because of the fact that we saw a lot of burn without a sustainable business model. And that is when everybody realized that, okay, money is available, but it's not available so easily that without a business model, without customer delight, you can just come and take money and then burn it.
Agreed. Is a classic war between strategy and tactics, right? I mean, you can play a couple of tactical games, but in the long haul, you have to adapt a strategic approach towards building, in a more concerted fashion. So, on that note, I think we've run out of time. So, thank you so much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure. I think amazingly riveting conversation. Any parting words you want to say for our listeners and CX enthusiasts, especially those working in the retail environment?
I think first of all, I would like to thank you. It was a pleasure having this conversation. As usual, I mean, whenever we have spoken on this subject, I would just tell everybody that customer experience is a patience and a passion game. if
Yeah.
if you don't have these two qualities, at the same time putting yourself in a consumer's shoe, uh, it's very difficult to sustain. So irrespective of where you are in the journey, just think of it from that standpoint, that you got to think from a customer aspect, or a point of view, balance it out with business, and be passionate and patient about driving customer experience. Once you're able to do that, let's say whether it takes 6 months or a year or 2 years, once you're able to do that, you are in for a long haul.
I love that. Patience and passion. I really love that. I'm going to take that away. But anyhow, thank you so much for bringing that to the table. And just summing up, whilst retail is the largest and the fastest growing sectors, as Arpit says, prepare to ride the wave with CX on your side. And it will take some doing, but it's going to be well worth the journey. So whether you need to sharpen your GTM, whether it's about having a single view of the customers, your CRM through the inventory, sales, service journey, or whether it's access to dashboards in real time where you sort of take immediate action in an agile fashion. Even though he says it's slow, I still believe it's a more agile world than some of the other categories I've interacted with. And of course, at the end, and the most important, I think the message you've given is around a lot of delivery of personalized shopping experiences, which can build lasting value, and with for both clients as well as the platforms. So thank you so much for that. And on that note, I also thank the listeners for joining in today on this episode of CX Excellence Chats with Anjali. I hope you enjoy this conversation. Remember, your business success begins with great CX. So keep mastering that art. Till the next time, on next fortnight, we'll see you again. And of course, before I go, if you've enjoyed this, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your network. Bye bye.